My summer as a Disney theme park cast member character nearly ruined my life and nearly ended it. I'm not trying to be overly dramatic here and say that what happened to me can happen to anyone that gets the job. I truthfully believe I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. My job was goofy. I think one of the strange things about being a silent actor is how often you hear people's personal lives as they take your pictures or they pass you by. It's this built-in sense of trust, I think. They just assume you are trustworthy, or just ignore you, maybe. And usually what I would hear wasn't anything of importance, like where they were going to go for dinner, what ride they would check out next. A few of them would say obnoxious things to me, knowing I couldn't talk back, but I didn't care. It was good money and I wasn't going to cause a fuss. That changed a few weeks after I started working, and this little kid came up to me for a photo. I did the usual wave to him, a few gentle chuckles, and then he just stood still as a statue and whispered to me, "I think someone is trying to hurt me." I froze, unsure of even how to respond. His guardians were a short distance away where they couldn't hear, but it's not like my employee manual came equipped with this scenario. I nervously chuckled and took the picture. The brief snippet of conversation we had was over in an instant as the grown-ups tucked him away. He looked at me with big sad eyes as he left, enough to tell me that he'd been hoping that I'd help him or whatever. I tried not to panic and ignored the nagging sense of doubt. I should have done something. I knew the longer I waited, the more likely that this kid would be in danger. So I took a break and I called my supervisor, who was working over in the animal kingdom. "Hey, I'm sorry to bother you, but the strange thing just happened," I told him. I briefly described the situation and asked him what I should do, and he told me that he would get back to me soon enough. But that just made more time pass, more chance for this poor kid to be hurt. Rather than wait for my supervisor to make a decision, I went over to the security office near Main Street and reported the incident to them as well. Around what time was this?" the officer asked. "Probably about 3:30, I said, as they started to check the cameras in the park. They fast forward the tapes until I pointed with my finger at the image and said, That's him right there, look." I was really relieved to see that as we checked the tapes, the family hadn't left the park yet. That meant there was still time to act. "It doesn't look like they are trying to act suspicious or something. They are going on rides, buying collectibles, normal tourist stuff," the guard said. My boss added to this with a call that told me no missing persons had been reported in the last 48 hours. I looked at the still images again, concerned that neither of them were taking this seriously. "Shouldn't we at least check this out and make sure they aren't up to something?" I asked. "There isn't any proof that there is anything to be concerned about or a reason to interrupt their family vacation. If we hear any other reports from across the park, then maybe then, okay?" the boss said. Maybe it was just because I was new and I didn't understand how any of this worked, but it felt like they were basically treating a kid's safety as less than important than the money they were making from the family in the park. We couldn't possibly be that expendable, could we? I made a mental note of the last location of the family, the Jungle Cruise attraction, and told them both thanks for at least looking into the matter. The truth was I was determined to go find out whether this kid was in danger or not once and for all. First, I returned to my dressing room and got my goofy costume. No one pays attention to mascots, remember? If I got to the ride and went on it to find the family, no one would bat an eyelid. I knew that leaving my post might get me fired, but I just didn't care. I was positive that this kid's life was on the line. When I got to the Jungle Cruise, I asked the ride operator if a family had gotten on the ride in the last 15 minutes but not gotten off. He gave me that half-interested look that told me that he thought I was pulling a prank. "Please, just check," I insisted. He brought in all of the boats a few minutes later, and I saw traces of blood on one of them. "They must have slipped away off the ride," I confirmed. I knew that there were plenty of exits throughout the ride in case it ever had an outage, so it wasn't outrageous to assume that maybe they had taken one of those exits. I started up the ride and went into the cruise, frantically searching for any other sign of the struggle. My radio went off as I went further downstream. "If you don't turn around and get back here right now, you are fired." My boss. He must have called my bluff, I realised. At the same time, I heard a muffled scream and looked up between the various jungle brush to see the kid struggling to escape the woman's arms. "I'm on my way," I shouted, climbing off the boat and jumping to the shore. The kidnappers looked at me like I was insane as I climbed over the equipment to reach them, but when they realised I was the same costume mascot from earlier, one of them drew a knife and placed it against the boy's neck. "Make another move and he's a goner," they warned. I could tell that they had already cut the poor boy a few times as a warning not to struggle. "What are you doing? Why would you hurt an innocent kid?" I asked. "Are you kidding? Ransom is the oldest, most profitable business in the book, and anyone who can afford to take their kid to Disney during a fucking pandemic is fucking loaded," the second one snarled. I had to think fast to save him. Then I recalled the part of the ride we were on and took a step back. Kidnapper moved towards me, thinking I was perhaps going to escape. Then an animatronic elephant reared its trunk out and smacked him right in the face. I moved in a split second, leaping to the kid and grabbed his hand as the kidnapper fell into the waters below. A second later, one of the boats came on top of them, smashing them and killing them. What happened after was routine, for the most part. I guided the kid out and gave him over to the authorities. We later found out that the kidnappers had targeted his family earlier in the Magic Kingdom and were holding them ransom in the hotel. All in all, it was a happy Disney ending, except for me. My boss fired me anyway for being insubordinate. I know it isn't fair, but I doubt I will forget my time there either.